This meeting is being live streamed. By staying in this meeting, you consent to being live streamed. Anyone with access to live stream can watch or share with others. Got it.
So we're live right now?
I have no idea if we're live right now. Oh, I think we might be live right now. This meeting is being live streamed. This meeting, I think we might accidentally be live right now. Can watch or share with others. Okay, but how do I get it to stop? There's a delay. Sorry, guys. We've been trying to figure this thing out for like 2 hours. If we are live, I'm sorry. Oh, I think we might be live right now. This meeting is being live streamed. Oh my God, there's like such a delay. I think we might accidentally be live right now. Watch or share with others. Okay, but how do I get it to stop? There's a okay.
I've turned my volume off.
Out for like wait, you know what? Hours. If we are live, I'm sorry. Oh, I think we might be live right now. I'm gonna just okay there. I muted it on the other thing, so there's gonna be a thing, but it's okay. Like okay. All right, you guys. I think we're on my channel live.
Okay.
And I don't even know what it's called because I messed around with this thing so much that I'm not even sure. So. See if
Let's see.
See if it is on my channel.
Oh, amazing.
I'm gonna go check it out.
Okay, cool. All right. So y'all, I'm here with Wondering What Productions, Mike, and we have Ziggy Dan. And I'm Nikki from Nikita Jones. And anyway, the thing of it is like we've been trying to set up this like live stream thing since 3 noon. So it's p.m. So I accidentally pushed a couple of buttons and here we are. This isn't exactly what we want though. We wanted all of it. We wanted it to be live on all of our individual channels at the same simultaneous time. So if you guys know how to do that in the real world, please
let us know. I'm showing that you're live.
It was crazy. And we tried to do it on Discord. Yeah. So I accidentally pushed a couple of buttons.
That was me.
So I am live then. We are live on my channel somehow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well then, I don't know, like maybe I'll tweak this out so that somebody will come and ask us some questions. But okay, here's the subject that I kind of wanted to talk about with you all today is the the concept of
Am I here?
what?
Am I still in? I can.
You're still in.
Yeah.
You're still in. I can hear you. Okay, so what do you guys think about like these walls or monuments or like things that are placed in areas that they, are supposedly there's not supposed to be anything, and so when they find them, they're like, oh, it's just natural. Like an example is the Montana wall that you just went to, Mike, and everybody thinks that's natural. What do you think about that?
I mean, honestly, there was at least in my feedback, there was only a few people that thought that was natural formations. But I just don't understand how you look at that and you can think that that's natural. It's not. It's completely out of place. We spent our entire time up there before we went to that actual site looking at all the surrounding area. There's a lot of geology going on there. We're on top of a batholith up there. It's the boulder batholith, and it just doesn't look like anything else. There's boulders and stuff strewn all over the place up there, but I was looking for specific things when I was up there. Those right angles, stones stacked on top of each other with right angles, carved pieces and things like that, straight lines, lots of straight lines. And so, I think that was one thing. I just lost my train of thought. When I was out there for the last, talking with people over the last week about the
Montana monoliths.
Yeah, I just totally lost my train of thought.
Okay, well, what the train of
Was-
thought being like, okay, when people keep on telling you, oh, it's natural.
Yeah, and it just that's what I was gonna say was the video, when I'm able to finally release the full videos on that instead of just the short walkthroughs, you'll be able to see like the drone footage and different stuff from above, and how there it's like a site, it's like laid out. So, and I can't remember if we've talked about this before or not, but this idea that these megalithic structures just stopped at like Mexico City, you know, at
Oh, right.
Teotihuacan, and like that there just was nothing else built, you know, above that area and up into the Americas, as if somehow these ancient cultures didn't make it that far. You know, it's just kind of absurd to me to think that. And so I think there's a lot of stuff here in the Americas worth exploring that haven't been, you know, looked at enough in terms of megalithic sites and stuff like that.
The only one I can think of is the dolmens around New York.
What's that?
The dolmen in New
Yeah.
York. One. That's about the most northern one, and plus there's one in a lake. I think it's Lake Michigan. Looks like Stonehenge.
Yeah, the one that's in
Yeah.
the underneath the lake. But
Right,
then there's
that's
also
the furthest north I've seen anything on the USA on that North
also
America.
there's one in New Zealand that there's a wall in New Zealand. There's rock wall in Rockwell, Texas that they say is a natural wall. There's like Naga caves in I think Thailand that supposedly it looks almost like a petrified snake, but it has kind of a similar that one I don't think is natural, but they say like that's natural. They say even the Costa Rica balls, the spheres.
Yeah.
I remember you were sending me something, Ziggy, about how that could be like an electrical universe, like that could be some sort of lightning ball thing. They have those same balls also in New Zealand.
You ever seen how lead's made? Lead shot. Muskets. They used to drop them from a tower, molten lead, and forms a ball. So if rocks were melted and they ejected from the earth, they go up, they'd still be molten when they come down. They're going to form balls. If they fall into the sea, and then the sea disappears thousands of years later, they'll be left on land somewhere.
I mean, but then what? You think it came from a volcano? Or
no, not necessarily. It could be molten from when the land's struck by supercharged lightning. It melts and vaporizes the rock into blobs, and
okay,
they float up.
the thing that makes me kind of go like about that in particular is like in Costa Rica, the one site that I went to with the balls, one was like totally fossilized. I mean, like I have photos. I could put it on some other thing. There was probably like 12 spheres in the area I was at. There were different sizes, different kinds of rocks, different kinds of granite, different kind of limestone, and one's like a total like fossil sphere. So I feel like somebody sculpted those with machinery because it would be one thing if like I would think it would stand. I could more easily agree with that. Like it's molten rock if it was the same molten rock, but it's
they use them in mills for grinding stone balls.
okay.
So you could I think if you're talking for high tech, that's a remnant of high tech from huge machines for crushing stuff. That's what look at stuff like that.
Yeah, so even if you cut it that way, it's still made.
Yeah, they were made, yeah. But I try and think of other mechanisms because I've seen them coming out of cliffs, the size of cliffs, and they look like perfect, they look exactly the same. So how did they form? There is a gas bubble that sort of something got inside the bubble after the bubble had formed and gone solid, and that's how it's grew. And it's just grew like a pearl. Maybe it's just a accretion of sediments to form them. You've got to try and think of other mechanisms to form them before you get to carving them, to me. But I mean, it's easy to say. I mean, obviously you can carve them, but I look for other things first. If there's other, things that you can think of to say, because as you say, people say it's just natural. Now, when you're talking about the walls, now the walls that he was showing, the Montana ones, from the parts I've seen, that looks made, does not look like it's just natural flexion. It looks like it's different blocks placed at 90, there's got 90-degree angles on them and everything. And this is how you would do brickwork or block work. The joints don't meet. They're separate across, like brickwork, from what I've seen so far. And that suggests that they've got to be manipulated over each brick on the course underneath.
Okay, so so I have seen that with some of these walls that they're saying are natural. It is because like there isn't like staggerization. That's like, okay, but at the same time, like what if, I mean, like that's like assuming like the way we think and build now is the same as they did then. And obviously they didn't have to be staggered because they're still standing there now. So, I mean, I don't know. I just don't think that that's always the strongest argument when they use that as a way to say that, oh, because the seams do line up instead of staggering, that it's natural.
Well, they don't line up on
I mean,
so
natural. We don't see a lot of, in a lot of different sites around the world. They weren't building these structures the way that we would now, like stacking things in like uniform, like, you got the polygonal masonry and stuff that's just all over the place. I think what, and then a lot of the structures, especially when you get into South America, they're all wider at the bottom. They're heavier at the bottom. And they were building for stability. I mean, these things have stood for who knows how long in earthquake-prone zones where these walls are not collapsing, and it's taken a lot to shift them or move them. But some of these examples that we're talking about around the world is like, it's really interesting when we start really digging into like what the similarities and stuff, at least for the recent stuff that I was doing out in Montana. I was looking for things like nubs. I like seeing those right angles in the flat walls and the surfaces, but when you start looking at like finding things like nubs around there that are so clearly like those three that were in alignment with each other, or scoop marks and all sorts of those types of identifiers, if you can start finding multiple pieces of evidence besides just one thing, then now you're really building a case for something. And then if you can get above it and look down on stuff where you can see a layout to an area as if there was some kind of plan to it, you got something.
Yeah, definitely. That's what you got to look for, the square angles and things like that. Things that just they're not gonna, there's traces like star forts. I used to like looking for star forts, and they don't end at the wall. They go further out, and if you follow them out into the countryside, you start seeing tree lines. Forming the same shape, which obviously they've gone forward planning, thinking, well, if an army's going to attack from here, if we plant the trees like this way, then they've got to go round and expose themselves in the open so we can pick them off. And you can see the design. You can even see old towns where the streets, there's still the footprints of the star fort where it's gone out, where Spread out.
Okay, so what is the deal with the star forts? Like everybody's talking about the star forts, and I have not dug into. I mean, I know they're everywhere and they're amazing and they're like, you know, but is like walk us through sort of the underlining mystery of the star forts, because that's a rabbit hole I know I got to go tackle. I just haven't tackled it yet.
Oh. Saxe in Peru, right? That's the reason why it's called a fort to me is because of the jagged edges, the way it's shaped at the top of Cusco, right? Right, the jagged edges resemble how a star fort is made. So the only reason why a star fort is made like that is to deflect cannon fire. You can't get you can't get an angle, a flat angle, so the cannon will bounce off because of all the angles. So they're set like that for that reason. Now, when they built the fort in Saxe 1 on the top, what kind of enemy were they facing? If that's a fort, they would have only had slings, small stones, and bows and arrows and spears. So who needs to build a fort with that much fortifications when there's no enemy capable of attacking it?
Yeah.
It's clearly not a fort. It's definitely not a fort. Whatever it is, it's not a fort.
So I've found a lot of interest on my end. I'm looking into the star forts and stuff like that, based around somatics and stuff like that, like these old world churches and some of the different shapes that are used in some of these places that, you know, it's influence over the shape of structures and things like that having an influence over energy and sound being utilized and things like that. You start getting into like all these old world bells and stuff that were removed from all these structures back in the world wars, and you know they always exist in a church, and that, you know, perhaps a lot of these old world churches weren't didn't originally start as churches, but were more kind of like maybe healing centers or places of focusing energy.
Well, a lot of the places around springs, which probably goes back to pagan times. Because then you get a holy well or a sacred spring, which you get holy water and stuff like that. Pilgrims come to take the water.
Yeah, and think about the influence that sound and things and different stuff has over water, and shape, its shapes and things. You know, you really go down, and then you look at the layout of some of these sites, you know, that are laid out like energy grids. You look at Angkor Wat or Teotihuacan in different places like that, and you get into some of these old world churches and the layout on the, you know, they have these built into the design, these pathways and different things that are similar to the way that you see certain things like microchips and stuff being designed now.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do know.
Yeah.
I mean, even stuff like some of the Greek Acropolis and stuff like that looks
right.
Yeah. Okay, wait, we got some people are like writing stuff to us. Like we have like David Canada says, like, why do you think there are stone nubs found all over the planet? Do you think it's a language? I'm not into the language thing. I personally think it's a technology. Like I think it's like akin to, actually, I don't know. It could be a language. That's fine. I'm cool if it's a language. But you know, the of all the nub theories, which there are many, which I love, that are great. but I personally am into more of like a functionality mechanism, like either like it's a socket and a plug for like their way of charging energy. It is a light source itself. It's like some kind of I don't know. I don't really know. Nubs are like the biggest mystery, I think. Their person is. Ziggy, what do you think they are? You kind of like the Mason's code, right?
Yeah, tech language, Mason's codes,
We got a little bit of a delay here.
where load bearing pillars and things are going to go. The positioning devices to me, because I've found them on where a lintel between two pillars, two columns, we find them and it's sensors, and it's telling the mason not to go this way or that way. You can't, because you're going to stress it. It's got to go where the nubs are fit there. And I've seen it on plenty of lintels now, India and Greece, which they could be sharing the tech, because the Greeks invaded India and they could have brought it with them, because they obviously had nubbed structures in Greece long before the Indians started building theirs. And there they are. India has the most.
You say they're a Mason's code. Like, wouldn't they have taken it off if it was visible? Like, wouldn't they have removed the nub?
I don't know. No, because some of them are telling the information needs to be for the engineers. If anyone's going to fix the temple, if anything's wrong, they're telling the engineer where the drains are and things like that, which you get on a building now. If you look at everything that's on what you would get on a building now, there's like where the gas supply is, where the water supply is. It's all on the outside of the building. So, and there's codes for engineers, for water engineers or communications or whatever, where they're situated in a road or outside a building and where they go into a building. So it would just be a tradition that's being followed blindly. But to me, the nubs, it's a forgotten thing. It's a forgotten language, tech language or code, and it seems to have been forgotten, because Masons probably learned to read and write and could probably read plans, and they didn't need it anymore. Well, I mean, I've worked in construction and we work from codes. We see a blueprint. It doesn't. It's just like squiggly lines with numbers on. But you know what those numbers mean and where the squiggly line ends up in the building or in an oil rig or whatever, where the piping's gonna go and where it finishes. Even though it's on the other side of the rig, on a bit of paper, I can understand exactly where it is in 3D in my head. So that's what it's a tech code, and it's just a tradition. I just think that it's a tradition that's carries on forever, because I found them 5,000 years old. So there's probably even earlier ones than that, and that's mainstream. Say that's the date for that. The oldest one in Egypt was Saqqara I've ever found, must be 5,500 years old, at least. So they were using the tech back then, and they used it right up until about the 1600s, as far as I can see. Because after the 1600s, you don't find them.
Wait, like, do you know an example of a nub that was built in the 1600s?
The Star Fort at all, the French, Spanish Star Fort, what was it called? Bellegarde, Castillo, Bellegarde. It's on the border, France and Spain. Now that's got, but it's strange where they are and everything. It's as usual, they're on the corners and stuff. And it's different type of stone. It's more sturdier stone that they put on the corners. So, having a look around, I found loads of Roman sites that have been, or just called Roman sites, but they're devastated. They've been stripped of the masonry. So I'm just thinking maybe them builders took them and just reused all that stone on top of the bricks. It's a different type of stone. It's like I can't explain what type of stone it is. It's like marble or it's some sort of granite maybe. But all the buildings around the area, all the ancient buildings have been all stripped of their masonry, and to think, well, maybe that's where it's all ended up.
Yeah, but what do you think about all the different size and shapes of the nubs? You know, like some of them are tiny, some of them are like
Yeah, very different.
Yeah,
very-
well, they say if for lifting, right? Well, yeah, some of them are for lifting. There's no doubt about it. Some of them were.
what do you think? Okay.
And they basically correspond to the size of the stone. But you can see there's a 100-ton stone with a nub. It's like the size of a potato. The size.
Yeah, with a big one on it. That doesn't make sense.
Lift anything with that. It's just ridiculous. It's impossible for just to be for that reason, and yet it's there. And you got like ornate theatres in Delphi. They're fantastic and everything, and there's nubs sticking out the wall all over the place. Surely, whoever commissioned it say get rid of all that. I'm not having that. You know what I mean? I want nice smooth walls, but there they are. They're still there in place, and no one took them off. And even in likes of Greece and that, you've got triangular shaped ones, square shaped, round ones, half suns like an horizon. The sun coming up, which I think that's probably for them. It's a level. It's level with the horizon or something. Where they have that one. Yeah, I think that's what before.
The nubs are wild because it's like, you know, that's one thing about like any of the sites that I've seen around the world. I'm like, everything else you can kind of run out to some kind of logical conclusion, but like the nubs, it's like every time you kind of go down one path of thought, then you'll find another nub that's like, nah, that it doesn't work here, you know. It's and then you'll kind of go off with another thought about what they could be used for. And the one I hear all the time, and like especially on my Yangshan quarry video, people leave comments all the time about it being for moving, you know, so that when they remove the stone from, you know, that it wouldn't just, but we're talking about stones on such a massive scale. It doesn't matter what kind, that thing's going straight into the ground. If you're talking about leaving these nubs so that they can remove it from the stone and then it can be leveraged underneath, right? So it doesn't sit flat is what a lot of people say, or they can tie ropes to them and pull it. But if you see some of these things in real, just see them in video, you can see how massive these things are. Nobody was pulling some of these things with ropes. You know, it's just, that's not.
I went through a like a month where I was like, there's speakers. And like, I was like, there's speakers. I was like, because they're found like in amphitheaters, like underneath the seats, they're found like on top of poles and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, it was like an intercom.
Well, what if they were some kind of
they could have
energy
been
point or something, or energy transfer points on these things, you know? I mean, you know, if there was some kind of, you know, the only type of world-spanning civilization I could see that was capable of the things that we all are researching on and everything is the type of society that had access to free energy. You know, free energy eliminates all of the modern concerns that we have and any kind of need for a monetary system, and would allow a world-spanning civilization to exist in such a way that not only are you know, able to build these massive structures and things that we, you know, are having a hard time understanding nowadays, but it enables people to do things beyond, you know, our wildest dreams now. you could devote your
Yeah.
life to your passions and you know, pursuing great works and massive monuments of you know, astounding proportions. You know, we don't think that way anymore.
No, we
Uh,
create like little cinder block
Yeah.
squares and do
Right.
pointless little things like slaves all day.
Yeah.
India,
The goals are different, clearly, between the societies that exist now in this world and the ones that existed in the past. You know, and that's clear by the what was left behind. You know.
Yeah, it's like I was even talking to you, I think recently about my latest obsession is columns. Like I've been obsessed with columns since like I
Columns?
was column, but just
Yeah.
like just the tops of columns. Oh, and by the way, Jeremiah Shine, piezoelectric lights. Yeah, I've also thought about that one too. Like, I mean, I have thought, I've like been like, whoa, like what if you were walking in like these old temples and they were all like glowing from the nubs? Like that was like that was their street lights.
Yeah.
That would be cool. But I mean, you know, until you find like one of the big giant square ones, and then you're like, well, maybe. I mean, but yeah, who knows? Like
But that's the thing about nubs is it's like you every time you go down one path with these things, it kind of you find something else that just kind of messes that whole thought process up with the nubs. It's kind of a hard one to
I have made a video about that. Nubs electric.
What's that?
I done a video on nubs electric.
Oh, our nubs electric, yeah. I mean,
Oh.
like I well, some of them like it almost looks like there's negative and positive points to it, you know, like
Yeah.
how a battery, like there are blocks that have like one that protrudes out and one that kind of sunken in, like an anti-nub, and I'm like, ooh, that's totally like a, you know, one of those square batteries that we have. But I don't know. But okay, like I mean, and then people have bitched at me for this, but like if I say it doesn't really matter, or how about this? We can't verify one way or the other. We can't really validate like what they really were for. Like even if one of us just mentioned, yes, they were a Mason's code. Yes, they were this or this or this. The thing is that we can't really. No one's going to be like, you're correct. Here's your $100. It's not going to really work like that. But I think the thing that we can really focus on is, well, these are fucking found. Oh my God, I didn't say the F word because in case there's kids and stuff. But anyway, these are found all over the world, y'all. Like literally, including Mike just found some in Montana. So I mean, riddle me this: like, why are they everywhere? Like, why are they in India? Why are they in Egypt? Why are they in Peru? Like, why are they in Montana? Like,
I think what weird. We can do is we may not be able to answer, you know, specifically, but I think what we can do is eliminate some things, some kind of roads of thought. I think one of the easiest things to eliminate is the idea that these are there for tie-off points or something, or for moving, as if they had some, you know, I think that's kind of probably one of the weakest arguments, just because of the completely sporadic placement of these on stones and sites.
Yeah.
You know, they're not at key, you know, points for moving some of these things, nor are they sometimes even big enough. Or, you know, I keep going back to Yangshan Quarry. That one piece has so many all around it, but you know, they're not. If you can carve into stone that way, wouldn't you have something? If it was a tie-off point for moving, wouldn't it have like a lip at the end for rope to catch, instead of being a smooth kind of pointed out thing, right? Like, you know, it would make more sense to do stuff that way. It didn't seem to be a problem working the stone and cutting these massive pieces of stone. I imagine they could do it in whatever shape they wanted. But you know, maybe the start, you know, the key there is just kind of slowly but surely eliminating some of the stuff and to get a better idea of potentially what these refer. But what you just said something, Nikki, somebody had left a comment about, what did they say?
Piezoelectric lights, but we have another one of like, our infrastructure doesn't last 50 years, but the oldest civilization supposedly the least technologically advanced, somehow they have buildings still as strong as ever. Yeah, I mean, well, that's why I just like the fact that or like why I was getting into columns is that even if you just take the head of every column, like your Corinthian, your Ionic, your Doric, or whatever, these are, first of all, they're pretty global, even if you're neoclassicism and they're built in the 1800s. Okay, even if then the electric drill, y'all, didn't happen until Black and Decker in 1917. So just keep that in mind. So you're telling me that people just like the hand carved like this perfect little, yes, this perfect little spiral, like however many, like 100 times on however many they did on this building, like exactly to where they almost look like they're just like from the hardware store mold, like, oh yeah, let's go buy ourselves a Corinthian column top. They're just, it's just really weird, the symmetry that we have. And that just gets kind of like, oh yes, they were artists back there. Yes, they just drink bread and beer and they had nothing else to do but artists. Like I don't know, something about everything we're taught doesn't add up.
It doesn't. And
just,
all you have to do is, you know, look at places like India, you know, the temples in India where everything is just carved straight down perfectly out of one solid piece. It's you know, frankly, it's ridiculous. I think, you know, to think that, you know, you just had slave labor doing some of this stuff, and at least some of the narrative is changing and some of the, you know, mainstream history about the idea that you know, we were just throwing bodies at these structures to do some of these works. It's and when you start getting into the level of detail and some of this stuff, it's just, you know, it's pretty ridiculous and amazing.
And then they'll say like, well, you know, they had a lot, like for example, like cathedrals. If you talk about like ancient cathedrals, and you'll be like, look at the spires on those things, like just like we and we couldn't build that today. I think that's weird that we couldn't really rebuild that today. And they're like, yeah, but you know, we don't have the money or the time. It's like we have more money than we've ever had. We have more technology supposedly than we'd ever had. Like I just don't like it. I just don't like anything like about like, I feel like I'm like dropped in the middle of a movie and don't know the beginning. Like, you know, it's you're being told
you missed the main plot. It's the main plot point.
Yeah, it feels like that a lot all the time. So I don't know, but I mean, I also feel the one that bothers me ultimately the most is globalization. You know, like the fact that these hallmarks of things, like whatever you want to talk about, like nubs or something, or there's many of them, the fact that they can be found everywhere, it bothers me that it's kind of like, yeah, cool, but we're not going to talk about how that means that there was some sort of communication going on earlier than they're telling us there is.
At this point, it's frankly ridiculous. And if you think that there's enough evidence out there, and there's thousands and thousands of videos showing, you know, proof of different things around the world and the interconnectivity between these ancient sites around the world, that you're going to tell me that we clearly are looking at the fact that these ancient civilizations were doing things with their buildings and structures that we can't do and replicate to this day. But you're trying to tell me that they couldn't build a boat and sail for 6 days, however long it takes to go across the Atlantic Ocean. You're telling me that they couldn't do that? they could build the pyramids, but they couldn't sail a boat for a month, and communicate with other cultures and share knowledge.
I'm gonna confiscate that particular sentence about they could build the pyramids, but they couldn't build a boat. Because good fucking point. Oh my god, my mouth today. But yeah, I mean it, because it's just like
it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It's super ridiculous.
And people that are, want to call you a conspiracy theorist or something for just using common sense, cool,
They
man,
suck.
like whatever. But I mean, it's pretty ridiculous to think that, these cultures weren't in contact and sharing. Clearly, they were sharing technology and information and communicating with each other. I mean, we have examples carved in stone around the world. So I don't even think that's up for debate. If you're making that argument anymore, I mean, like,
yeah, I know. At this
same
point,
college.
it's becoming a situation where it's like, ignorance is a choice, and so I mean, you can choose to be like, like hit off from this kind of stuff, but
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of times, we're getting into more of the like social aspect of and ramifications of all this, and everything that we're talking about here and that we're all into, which is, if you choose to take a good hard look at all this, it shifts your worldview in such a way that you have to look at things a bit differently, which really calls into question everything else that you're being told about the world that you're living in. Most of all of this points clearly towards, high technology and more advanced civilization, not a less advanced civilization in our past. And that something happened, wiped everyone out, and we started from scratch, right? And if you understand that, you understand that the level of technology that was being used thousands and thousands of years ago was probably some kind of technology that the powers that be around the world would hate for us to have right now, because it means, that would mean independence. That would mean a level of prosperity that isn't controlled by a select few or governments or things like that, right?
Does anyone ever, Tesla said he was going to he could bring free energy to the market. Has anyone made the machine yet? He must have had, there must be drawings somewhere, or the idea that he has. Has anyone tried it yet?
yeah, I mean,
surely there must be someone who knows what he was onto.
Yeah, I mean, like there are people who claim that they have, and this and that, and then but then if you really go down the rabbit hole of free energy, and you start looking at there's I should actually do a video about all that, but all those people get killed, and like all their stuff gets like taken, and then
every handful of years somebody creates an engine that runs on a liter of water and can go for 1,000 miles, and then they just disappear. And along with the videos of them showing them doing it. I think the last guy that I saw that made one that was showing it did a YouTube video, was some dad in South America. And I can't find that video anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone deep down the free energy rabbit hole thing, and it's that like they always get a mysterious cancer, or they I mean, like I don't know, like there's some sort of I like, but I am a conspiracy theorist. I don't care. You can just call me that, because that's
I think it's common sense to recognize the fact that you're talking
monetary
about
gain.
Yeah, you're talking about billion-dollar industries that have so much power and control around the world. You think they're above killing someone to keep technology from getting out that could, wipe out billions of dollars and control over entire parts of the planet? Like, I mean, people get killed for far less than free energy.
If they get free energy, he probably wouldn't be doing it.
What's that?
If they were getting free energy, then they probably wouldn't be going down that route. If everyone was getting free energy, if factories were getting free energy.
Yeah. Al, I think free energy is something that would basically liberate the planet, all the people on the planet. Your needs, you know, if you have access to unlimited free energy, you're talking about a civilization that isn't wanting for anything anymore. I mean, it'd be the key to the type of civilizations that could create magnificent marvels of engineering and works like we see and like we're talking about, like the pyramids and places like Machu Picchu and things like that. You know, that's what a society with free energy, I think, creates, is something like that.
Well, they did have a form of free energy back in the past, wind power and water power, water wheels.
But they can't create boats and sail across the ocean.
Right. Shame on them. Yeah, for even trying.
Well, I don't know whether you've seen the. I got some grief on Twitter the other night over someone brought a depiction from a temple in Egypt of one of the boats allegedly used to transport the obelisk.
Oh, right. On the Nile.
So, I mean, you should have seen the size of the boat. It was ocean going. It was bigger than any galleon that probably sailed with the British Navy, the British Empire and all that. Like, it was massive. But it was only a depiction. So you can't say it was, you know, I wouldn't say it was real, but it was massive, this boat. And it would have easily gone on the ocean. So
yeah, I mean the obelisks are you know, like 700 tons or something. So yeah, that's the boats required for that would have been.
They'll get out through the Med. Because I don't think they'll get back. Obviously, I don't think they'll go downstream because there was no Suez Canal, was there, anything like that. I don't know how they would get across to go through, you know, certain parts. So you've probably gone off in the Mediterranean. But is Plato's story about Atlantis, that it was all clogged with mud, is the reason why they didn't go?
I mean, I guess it's like they just say it's because we don't have, you know, or what is the boat? There was a boat found in front of the, it's like some sort of like, you know, one of the big long boats that was found in front of the pyramids.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're more, that looks to me ornamental.
Yeah, it does look ornamental. It doesn't even look like it's very like meh.
Yeah, it's too flimsy to carry anything. I don't think that'll go far. I thought it might be all right in a lake or a moat around the pyramids or something like that. You know, ceremonial thing, but no.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I mean, some tyrants have royal yachts and things like that, kings and queens. Have you seen some of them? I mean, they're like, you know, it's something like Disney might come up with. Fairyland stuff, and that, you know, the royal coach we have in England with the Queen goes out in. I mean, it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Jared said, and what about the boat that they found underneath the World Trade Center? What boat underneath the trade? I don't think I know about that one.
No, I don't know that one.
But I mean, I do know that like financial district is basically.
I believe they did. They did go through the Meds, and I believe they did make ocean crossings. Someone did, maybe Phoenicians or Canaanites, but someone got across. And lower sea levels would have been to be more islands would have been exposed that you could stop off at, so you can get across the oceans a lot easier back then. If sea levels were at 400 feet deeper, sorry, lower. You'd have lots of
Well,
islands exposed.
I mean, even just the fact that there are pyramids like all over the world, you know, in Mexico, China, and Egypt, you're just kind of going like, that's not just like a human innate, like, oh, you know what? I feel like today I'm gonna make a pyramid, you know? It feels like that's something I should just do, like as an innate, as a human thing. We just do that everywhere.
Yeah, but
And
it explains away that a pyramid shape is the easiest thing to build. That's how they explain it away. So that's why everyone thought, well, let's try to build up, straight up. We'll build pyramids. Because
yeah, and for what? Like, because you can't exactly live in them.
Everyone had that idea then, all of a sudden. You know, everyone gets the same idea at the same time. And they're not going to build pyramids. No, it's just, someone's got to be spreading the tech and these things. They've got to be known about. They must be. There must have been orientations and everything. I mean, why?
And we keep finding more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More and more and more. You know.
LiDAR, did some LiDAR on jungles. There's thousands of citadels and everything in the jungle haven't even been touched yet.
Yeah, the Matador Basin is crazy. Like, I went to Tikal, and you know, I also went to Palenque recently, and just it's like the amount of stuff that's unexcavated there is just it's comical. It's just like, wow. But you can walk right next to and you could totally tell it's like some giant pyramid. But
we're told that people who study these things, it's settled science, and they've only got like 5% of the evidence. Well, that's enough for the argument to be settled, which, you know, there's 95% of other clues waiting to be found, still underground and everything. So it's not settled science. It still needs more. Everything needs to be excavated. Yeah,
and there are stuff like you know, like the Bosnia pyramid, which people are kind of going like, oh, well, that's a mountain. But then it's like, okay, even if it is a mountain, it's a manipulated mountain then. You know, it's like it could be like half natural, half man-made. It's manipulated somehow.
The three peaks do form an almost perfect triangle, and only yards out from being a perfect triangle. Now that intrigues me, but some of it I think's pyramid mania or something. I think they've gone a bit too far myself, and some parts of it, digging holes everywhere. But they have found stuff in some of them, tons of them, which has got.
This is a stone sphere from Bosnia.
They've got it's got carvings
that came from,
and it does look like it's structured. All these pebbles look like the lines up, but some of the tunnels they've dug look a bit dangerous. Look like they've gone a bit crazy from what I've seen. I wouldn't like to work in there. Looks like it'll come down anytime. Some of it looks really dodgy, especially if it rains or something. No.
But I mean, like, okay, here's the other thing. It's like, even if we were like, we had like this amazing like high-tech civilization, and it just went to like it had a war or a cataclysm or something happened and it was gone, and then like we're reset. Like, you would think that we would have, I guess I get a little pissy because I'm like, you would think that we would have a little bit better information than we do. Like, you would think that we would, like, I mean, I guess you want to, like, if you want to call our religious texts our information on what came before, I don't know. I just, nothing really is good enough. Like, you would think you would have ancestral stuff that people would tell you from here to here and here. And it just, like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we're all kind of like, you know, with me, it's like, oh, you know, my dad will be like, oh yeah, you're from Czech or Slovakia or Austria. And I'm like, it's Slovenia, Dad. your last name is from Slovenia. It's like, oh yeah, one of those countries. I don't know. It's just kind of like, it doesn't even, it's just kind of like, it doesn't even, the ink, I'm not articulating this very well, and it is live, so give me some grace, but it's like, I feel like the amount of just lack of clarity that we have about our past is really frustrating and really weird. And you would think like a lot of people would be like, oh, well, we have this, like, and it goes down from here and here and here, and every single generation, it's always been recopied in this and this and this. And we just don't. And even if the Native Americans or, you know, some like native cultures like used to do like oral traditions and stuff like that, it's still like, well, grandfather eagle went up to the buffalo man. And I mean, it's also, yeah, it's just really convoluted. So like, I don't know how to, I sometimes don't know how to compartmentalize like what's true or not. Because, you know, when you go into academia and then they just go off of text that was, and then they make assumptions based on the same text and they redo it like a million different times. You have your primary source, which is like, okay, when I was in art history, it was like Vasari, Giorgio Vasari was like an Italian artist who was a contemporary of like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo and Raphael and all those. Maybe not Raphael because it's a little before. Anyway, he like wrote the autobiography of all of them, and he was live at the same time as they were. And then anything after that is like people who are reading his stuff, reinterpreting his stuff, and then adding on because they found some other little thing, or they start like mixing each other's theories until, well, now it's like, I know my latest thing my sister tells me is like, oh, you know, like Leonardo da Vinci was a pedophile, and you know, he really liked this and this and this, and I'm going like, what information are you getting that off of? Because the only primary source that we have, besides his own handwritings and things that he talks about, which he doesn't, you know, out himself as a pedophile, like there is Giorgio Vasari. Other than that, you're just looking at like somebody's who's interprets something. So that's kind of how I see mainstream history is becoming. So, okay, can you riff off of any of that?
Yeah. There is histories that, like, I'm reading academic papers which are based on previous, like, so you go back and start looking, and then when you get so far back, you find that the source of why they say this temple belonged to such and such is because they found a little tiny statue. And that is the only evidence that all the rest of 200 years of academic
Tells
is all based on one little tiny statue that was found close by. It's ridiculous. So it needs to be rewritten. They don't know whose temple it was. They couldn't be sure or anything. The statue is a red herring, but it's been taken all through history, and people are still reading it thinking it's solid evidence, settled science. It's not.
I would prefer to just be like, okay, we found this little figurine in this temple. Okay. And that's all. Like, I don't need your story of it's a fertility goddess. And they used to put it around their beds and dance around it 3 times naked and hope for that they would. I mean, like some of the stories they come up with, some of the stuff you're going like, and this would have been used in a ritualistic way.
Yeah.
And you're going like, okay, so they had Barbie dolls. They had naked Barbie dolls, which we don't even know if that's what they looked like at the time, that they were clothed or painted. It's all gone now. So they had little naked Barbie dolls that they put on their beds to get pregnant. That's the story we're going with. Okay. Like that seems to be like a lot of what happens.
Well, and everything is always, the explanation is always some religious thing, right? And, you know, it's, or custom or practice, like all of it, the buildings, you know, everything's a temple or something, you know, you know, I think there's so many, you know, theories and different things about all these structures around the world now that make way more sense when you stop looking at it through the lens of our whole lives. You know, these structures, you know, are massive tombs. Well,
Right.
no, I mean, you know,
Everything's a tomb.
right? Everything's a tomb, or it's a, you know, and it's
Or-
just,
Or it's a temple. It's a tomb, a
Right.
temple, or for
Right.
fertility.
mhm.
And there was so much sacrificing. I'm always, you know.
There's a couple of buildings I've seen in India. One's called the Kush Mahal, and it's now a Buddhist temple. But when you look at the structure of it, how thick the walls are and everything, it clearly was not built as a temple. It's just not a Buddhist temple. It's been taken over. I found the exact same building somewhere else in India, a couple of 100 miles away. Same design and everything, heavily fortified, the walls and everything. And it to me, it looks like it's a treasury or something. I think that's what they just attached it. But they've hacked through the walls and everything and you can see all this. And it's a nub building and all.
Yeah, see, that's the reappropriation of stuff is also.
Yeah, and they've even tried to take the nubs off on the Kush Mahal. You can see traces of where the nubs were. But it's a nub building.
Yeah, that's just like somebody buying a house and going like, oh my God, this wallpaper is awful.
Yeah.
And repaint, I mean, you know, and that's what's happening. We reappropriate stuff and then you're like, oh yeah, I don't know who owned the house before.
Yeah, and sometimes many times over, you know, you've had multiple different civilizations come in and move into areas and leave their own mark on places all over the world.
Yeah, it's really true.
I mean, Egypt's a great example of that. You know, you go into some of these temples and the entire walls and different stuff have been carved, and you know, you've had to, you know, Muslims come in, Christians come in, Muslims move in again, and all sorts of different dynasties and stuff in between them before. So there's just sometimes in some of these places they've just been repurposed multiple times over.
It was at Ramses who, I think he's done the most damage. Recards, his name's everywhere. I think he took control over and got everyone else's name chipped off. And it's all him now. Like, he took over loads of stuff that he never built.
Right.
Claimed it all. Ramses the Great, one of them. So yeah, there is a lot of I mean, Cusco, you see the in the streets, shop fronts, they've hacked through the walls.
Yeah.
Commercial and
Yeah.
Cusco's crazy because you'll go down into the square there and it's like there's this megalithic structure and like on top of it's a Starbucks.
Yeah, or you'll go into a restaurant and there'll be like a giant like stone in the middle of the restaurant that they couldn't move. You'll just be like, oh cool. Yeah, it's crazy. But I mean, and then also like literally in Cusco, the only reason it's still there is because they couldn't destroy it.
Right. Yeah.
Puma Punku, the stones from there. Have a look in the town. Just have a look at the local town, the restaurants, the cafes, and all that. The oldest buildings you can find, and you can find bits of the stones.
Mm-hmm.
We've used them all. The same. This is Jerash in Jordan.
I don't know, you guys. I have to say though, we got to get off soon because it's all the internet connection is all crap.
Okay.
Mine's doing pretty good. Is it yours? Is yours just we're losing it?
I don't know, but like you guys are sounding like for me.
Just a minute. I think I know what Is that better? No. Oh,
It could be my internet too. I don't really know. Or it could just be that we're just trying this live thing for the first time and it's like, you've reached an hour. No.
am I back on now?
I think it's a good good
Okay,
first
so
look
does
here.
anybody have any questions to ask us before we go?
Yeah, let's field some questions.
Yeah, we had some good little rants, I think.
That's true. Father
Yeah.
Krush makes his followers see him through his own life. Yeah, absolutely. Father Krush.
Wait, who's Father Krush?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's I think he's the god of love, apparently. Excuse it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's
yes,
yeah, there's some buffering issue.
I will love the buddies on my next
Oh
trip.
no,
We'll be
Ziggy
in
is
Cambodia.
from Liverpool.
I can't see any chat on this screen.
If you go to Nikki's
Got it now, yeah.
you can go to her page. What I did is I went to her page and muted it, and so I can see all the text. I
Sanso,
don't know.
Chairman Sanso.
He's I think he's the god of love, apparently. There we go. That is a lag.
Dave Henry is like, oh, what's your whole idea in a nutshell on history? Yeah, I think I kind of told that. It's bullshit. That's what it is.
I can't see any chat on this screen.
Hey, I think I'm getting you have us on, so it's like reverbing. Like I think that's yours.
Yeah, you gotta mute.
If I mute him real
You gotta
quick.
mute that.
I gotta mute that. Okay, I'll unmute him in a second. Okay, so like we're just gonna go now because I think it's like we're good. We're like at an hour. It's cool, and the internet's kind of starting to suck. But we're gonna try to do these more often and with other people too. And we don't know how though yet. So we're learning. So
we made progress today.
Yes, it took us a long time to get here. We finally got here. We're here, and so that's cool. And we're gonna wait. Ziggy, you have to unmute yourself. Ask to unmute. Anyway, so
Q&A just started.
go. He said just Q&A just started. Oh yeah, like nobody's asking anything. Ask us something and we'll say something. But yeah, I had fun, and next time we'll like tell you in advance when we're gonna do it, and we'll actually like have figured a little bit of this stuff out more, and maybe we can be like boom, boom, boom to multiple people's channels, and it'll be a way better question and answer session of asking us. Not that like I know anything. I just like to rant. Questions.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. So this was fun. We'll talk soon. Is that good?
Yeah, great stuff.
Works for me.
Cool. All right.
Guys, have a good night.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay.